mom was afraid. And you would be afraid too if the principal at the school had called your home several times about your daughter, insisting that your 8-year-old daughter had something wrong with her. Back in the 30s, they were using words like slow and retarded. And they wrote a letter about Jillian to Jillian's mom. And they invited her into the office to talk with the principal. And the principal said, you need to take your child to a doctor and get her tested. You need to figure out what's wrong with her. She doesn't sit still. She is unable to focus in class. She's unable to pay attention. It seems like she's just not there. Jillian's mom was frightened. Her child was 8 years old and already labeled a problem child. And Jillian's mom had to provide a medical evaluation for her daughter, who at that tiny age of 8 was already being described as a damaged misfit. Tonight we gather around a story not that much different than Jillian's mom and Jillian. Not much different than the stories of our lives, really. The scriptures say there were shepherds out, and an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were sore afraid. They were terrified. Jillian's mom was scared. She sat with her daughter in the doctor's office and answered the doctor's questions after all the evaluation had been completed, and listened to the doctor for about half an hour while her daughter tried to sit on her own hands to keep herself from moving about in the room and was struggling with it. Then the doctor said to Jillian, your mom and I need to talk a little bit. If you just stay here for a moment, we're just going to step outside and it won't be long. And before anyone knew about white noise, the doctor turned on the radio, and the mom and doctor left the room. It's one of those rooms with, except Jillian's doctor didn't know about white noise. He didn't even turn on the radio to mask the conversation that mom and doctor were going to have in the hallway. No, Jillian Lynn's doctor was an angel of sorts. A messenger who bears good news. A messenger who sees the holy in the ordinary. Who sees God at work, even when we don't see God at work. Said the angel to the shepherds, you will see the image of God in a baby laying in a manger. Most people aren't going to see that. Most people won't care. But you will see the image of God if you go to Bethlehem and look in that manger. You will see royalty and hope and giftedness. So Jillian's doctor transformed everything in Jillian's life, literally everything in her life, with less than 15 words. He simply looked at Jillian's mom and he said, watch this. They stood and looked through that window. And what they saw was that Jillian got up from her chair and she began to move to the music. And the doctor simply said, Jillian's a dancer. Go enroll her in a dance school. Jillian Lynn says, my mom took me to the school of dance. We opened the door and I went in and I knew immediately these were my people. These were people who couldn't learn without being in motion, who couldn't understand life without moving their legs and their hands and reaching out to engage life. I was home, Jillian said. Now at 13, what would life have been like for Jesus? If he hadn't been uplifted by those who saw the best in him, if Mary hadn't nurtured him as a special, wonderful child, if Joseph hadn't taken him in as his own, if he didn't have the story of the shepherds gathering, if he didn't have the story of the wise ones gathering, if he didn't have experiences of angels being with him in the desert, ministering to him. We all need angels. Now, Gillian Lynn, of course, she became a dancer. She was cast, if you're old enough, across from Errol Flynn, danced with him. She performed in a couple dozen ballets. She choreographed the Muppet Show. Not so dim-witted after all. No special needs after all, except for the truth that we all have special needs because we're all unique. And yet we share some of the same needs. That need to belong. That need to know that we are loved and that we have a purpose in this life. God's image is born into us. We all need someone to shine that love and light into our lives. Gillian Lynn also became a lead choreographer for a couple of musicals you may have heard of. One was Cats. The other was Phantom of the Opera. She is multimillionaire. Cats, you know, that's the longest running Broadway production in history. Even longer running is another story. The 2,000-year-old plus story. That we still hear year after year, that Sunday school teachers still gather and spend some sleepless hours and challenging moments trying to put together each year so the kids can live it out and experience it until they learn it by heart. Because once we learn the story by heart, it changes our understanding of the world. And it changes our understanding of one another. It changes how we see our neighbors. It changes how we raise our families and live our lives. It changes the story by heart. It calls us into being our highest selves. When we lift it up into being our highest selves, we learn to bend low, to serve one another and help one another and be patient with one another. When we know the story by heart, it begins to sing itself into our lives. A baby born an angel, who became the master choreographer, or as one hymn puts it, the Lord of the dance. Now, just as I got to putting down some thoughts, and at this point in my thoughts in prepping for tonight's message, our office administrator, Sandra, walked in and she handed me a little envelope from our bishop, the bishop's Christmas card. And I thought, I need a break. I don't know exactly what I'm going to say for these last couple sentences. And I opened the bishop's Christmas card. And the words were these: "This Christmas we again join the multitude of the heavenly angels, singing God's praises." Are meant to join the angels in their songs. To see hope and promise and beauty in every child of God, and every child is a child of God. Every child, regardless of their age or 80 or immature. Christmas Eve, that baby in a manger asked us one more time, without saying a word, he asks us, will you join the angel song? Will you find a way to tell those who need to hear it the most that they are beloved brothers and sisters of Jesus, a royal priesthood created for a purpose? If you would lift your voice with the angels, I invite you to say these words with me. I'll say them, then we'll say them together. We'll say them twice. That way we get one time to practice, then we get one time to really let it sing it. Glory to God in the highest heaven. Will you say that with me? Glory to God in the highest